Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Survivor 50 Wishlist podcast series. We're trying to figure out who could and should come back for Survivor 50 on the horizon. Today, we bid farewell to our podcast in June, but we say hello to Samoa for the first of a good amount of seasons. Season 19, the one right before Heroes versus Villains, but I think more conventionally known as the season of Russell Hantz. Of course, baseball is not my sport. Making podcasts is, and I'm so happy to be doing that alongside an out-and-out Survivor alum. I'm not sure how much they were watching Survivor Samoa to practice the challenges like they might have with some puzzles from other seasons, but so excited to welcome from Survivor 41, the great Dr. Evvie Jagoda.
Hello, Mike. I'm so thrilled to be here. This is so fun. I been doing the Pride is Spoken all summer, and each one of those podcasts I craft with love and care and heart and just a lot of effort. And now it's summertime, baby. Let's talk Samoa. I've got a drink. Mike Bloom is here. Let's have some fun.
There we go. That's what we're here to do. It really is the big three of me, hard alcohol, and Survivor podcasting.
People need hard alcohol to let the Russell go down smoother. You know what I mean? It's definitely a strategy. So,
and we'll certainly talk about Russell and hard alcohol, maybe not mixing when we talk about his chances of coming back. But here we are,
sure.
Survivor Samoa. I'm really excited to have you on here, not just to get the chance to speak with you as always, but I feel like getting you to talk about Survivor Samoa. I feel like this and 41 have garnered some of the most Snyder Bro-like responses from the fan base of give us the real edit of this season. Of course, Samoa has the most lopsided edit in Survivor history, where it really is all about Russell. I would imagine perhaps doing at least parts of the fact that he was going to get brought on immediately to the next season and go all the way to the end once again. 41, a little bit of a different kettle of fish, more editing around all the new twists that came in the new era. But I'm curious, Evvie, from your perspective, as someone who maybe got to experience a season that did not turn out from a storytelling perspective the way that you thought, does that give you any different taste to watch back Samoa with?
Wow, what a good question. I mean, I wasn't honestly thinking of it so much from that element of the storytelling, whereas for me, what I was thinking was, even when I watched it the first time, I feel like I really did understand, yes, why would these people want to give Russell $1 million? That is, a key part of the game that he obviously just did not care about. But I feel it so much more now that I've been on a jury and just can really, it's just we all just saw it with Kenzie and Charlie and so many of the winners in the new era, like Marianne versus Mike, there's so many where it's yes, if you were watching for who was making the most moves all the time, is that the person that would win? In my season, that might be Deshaun, but at the end of the day, how people feel about you, extremely related to whether or not you're going to win Survivor. And, clearly Natalie had that. And I don't know, I just feel like I have so much more respect for it, even now. And yeah, and on the story side, it just is, I saw so clearly how, there were always Erica truthers, because Erica's cool and people saw that person on their screen and was like, I feel like there's more there than we're being given. But it is so true how if you don't show that person early on, it's really hard for the story to make sense to the audience. And it is so baffling as to why sometimes Survivor doesn't make it obvious to the audience at all as to what's going to happen. And this is definitely one of those times.
Before we move into Samoa proper, I want to remain in 41 for the time being because, look, I wouldn't be doing my job. We did this with a couple of other alumni we've had on. If I didn't ask you, Evvie, it'll be a little bit before we get to 41, but if and when we do, just so we have it on the record for, you, me, and a few thousands of our dearest, closest friends, would you be interested in coming back for Survivor 50?
I would absolutely do that. Yes. It's of course, duh. Yes. Survivor's so fun. You can't recreate Survivor in any other situation. You know what I mean? You can't just play Survivor with your friends. You can do one of the amazing, Survivor Brooklyn or things like that. But the stakes, the $1 million stakes are a really core element to it. And yes, I would definitely do it. I'm being very long-winded today because I love that you're in charge and I just get to blah, blah, blah. And
Come on,
Yeah,
join the
I would
club.
definitely do that. And I'll just say, whatever. Probably everyone's getting on here and like soft selling themselves. And in every other thing, I probably would. Listen, my story, I had a lot of game left in me. I made a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of good things and I did a lot of dumb things. That's so fun. What will I do next? Who knows? And also, gender's different in the expression. I don't have boobs anymore. It would be really freaking cool to go back. And I honestly do think it would be a cool story to get to share with Survivor fans in that medium. So yes, I would go back, and I'm pitching myself, and I don't care. I'm here. So
listen,
yeah.
I said that baseball is not my sport, but I'm catching every pitch that you throw right now. Though I will say, maybe if you want to add a little bit of flavor, add like a Hurricane Katrina story on top of that. I heard that goes over really well.
Well, that's true. Obviously, like that's actually how I got into Survivor, was through listening to fake lies about Hurricane Katrina. Man, and that even watching it now, Hurricane Katrina, it's well in the past. That was a very, very fraught thing to be lying about.
Unlike the first day as well.
Yes.
That's the thing about Russell. And like him or hate him, the podcast is largely going to revolve around discussion around him because the season was. Jeff Probst, even before the season, talked about how there was one of the biggest villains in Survivor history. He was this maniacal Machiavellian puppet master. And I think even then our expectations were set too low, that Russell is going to go into the first episode and lie about a tragic backstory and burn his tribe-made socks to make him suffer, because that's what makes him weak. And so begins the legacy of Russell Hantz, who will forever change the game of Survivor.
No, absolutely. And I chose to do this podcast because I actually really do like this season of Survivor.
Okay.
It's dark, it's intense, but that is also very real. And I think that's always the thing I like about Survivor. I love a goofy season, but I also love a gritty season. And this one really has it. And also I do think that the jury vote it's an iconic thing that Russell loses. It really speaks to a core element of the game. You know what I mean? And so, and I really do. And also the game Russell plays is so interesting and fascinating. And it really is absolutely amazing what the FOA for.
Yeah.
The FOA. Okay.
There we go. No, listen, I'm on board with you. Again, I'm following you. I'm catching those pitches.
You're catching those pitches. Yeah. So no, I think it's a really special season. He obviously made an enormous mark on Survivor, and it's so epic that he loses both times to women he doesn't think have a shot in hell. And that's perfect Survivor storytelling ultimately for me.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just an incredible microcosm of what the show is, which is this ability to play this cutthroat game, but in an environment that deals with squishy, fleshy, flawed people. I mean, this is almost the polar opposite of the Sue Rats and Snakes speech, where it's they were friends for such a close amount of time that when Kelly inevitably cuts Sue, she is torn to pieces over it and would leave her without a drink of water in the desert as a result. With Russell, it's more so that this guy cuts a freaking swath in this game, to say the least. He's finding idols without a clue for the first time since Gary Hogaboom. He's finding multiple idols, playing multiple idols. He got his alliance right after Jalapao did it, all to the final four. He's able to manipulate people, get people to not go to rocks, getting Shambo in his territory, masterminding pretty much every vote of the season.
Except for the merge. He was a little confused at the merge. And my girl Natalie, she knew what was happening there.
But then it comes down to the fact that the way he is conducting himself amongst the people he is being voted out is disregarding them, to say the least. And so, especially when you watch things from the lens of knowing that he loses, it is a really fascinating study. I would imagine, especially for current and future players, too, of almost a blueprint of things you can do, but things you very much shouldn't do at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so fascinating because I feel like the first round viewership, from my understanding, which you were right in the opening, I was not watching at the time, was so just completely shocked and upset that he lost.
Yeah, I mean, he was the main character to end all main characters. I think I think Boston Rob may have edged him out in Redemption Island, but I think he's up there for the most confessionals in a season in Survivor history. We have branded the Russell effect, where someone like Rob Cesternino was out on Survivor for a while, but then heard rumblings of there's this guy named Russell who's playing one of the best, most cutthroat games in Survivor history, and it drew him back to the show proper. And that was the case for a lot of Survivor fans at the time.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's epic. And like, you know, I remember hearing in a Talking with T-Bird or something with Jerry Manthe at some point. I think Jerry did one. And she said something of like, that Russell's just like the worst person she's ever met. Something like that. Something really intense. Go back and check the tape. And I just want to say, I feel like what's crazy is he's such a villain on the show. And I think the edit is still being very nice to him. You know what I mean? Will be my guess. And like, for those of you still in the Twitter streets, like, I've got no freaking qualm saying it. He's a bad guy. And I don't think I'm not going to put him on my ballot for Survivor 50. But
okay. But will you put him in your fantasy football league is the better question.
I mean, I feel like he's not like, I think this is the kind of thing where when Jeff is like, we don't want villains. And what I think he meant was we don't want to platform people that we don't want to give platforms to. It's like, we want villain characters. We don't need villain people. And I think you saw that in 46 really well, where there was so much conflict, but they're not bad people. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, it's just like, you know, he's this guy. He came in, he mixed up Survivor game. It was incredible. Redemption Island, kind of a dud for him and, you know, for a lot of people. And then it's fine. We've seen it. So I'm just going to say it. I don't know if he's on my ballot.
Well, let's get into this. I mean, again, we're looking at this final three, but we have to start with the man in the middle here in Russell, because when this entire experiment was brewed up in this lab, Evvie, of 46 podcasts into a fan vote, this is the moment I have lamented the most. Because honestly, whatever hour of the day, my opinion might change as to whether or not I would think Russell would get asked on for 50. Because
oh my God, you think there's even a chance they would actually ask him? I feel like that was like for sure already off the table.
So the thing so this is where I go back and forth, because I think first off, okay, there are rumors that he was blacklisted for a number of reasons, but Russell has claimed that he was contacted for season 40 back when the theme was rivals prior to being winners of war. On the other hand, Russell is notorious for stretching the truth a little bit. On the other hand, Johnny Fairplay said the same thing, and I put him on the list saying, well, he's now completely in the doghouse with production, so why shouldn't I take Russell at his word? On the other hand, Russell is someone who has been incredibly vocal on his Not So Nation Anymore YouTube channel about how much he dislikes the new era. On the other hand, we have put on people who have also been critical of the new era, like Eliza, like Shane Powers on the ballot. On the other hand, I don't know if they've been as vocally critical in the way that Russell has, which is honestly veering on some incredibly offensive, harmful territory at certain points. I would say
I've experienced directly random transphobia from him. So yes, he's doing all sorts of stuff. That's the kind of thing where I'm just like, I actually don't, that like, it's not right. It's like, he's not just a problem, and that, you know, he's going to be chaotic. It's like, there's so much documented stuff that I just really doubt that the show in this iteration is trying to touch. I really believe, I mean, like, is he absolutely iconic in the Survivor pantheon? Yes. Like, I agree with everything you said. Like, he really did define the second half of this show. You know what I mean? And like, I really think he like touched off a thing that was incredibly important. And he did that already. And it's not then now. And he just like, I would be so surprised if Jeff Probst now at the height of his power feels the need. You know what I mean? He doesn't freaking need Russell. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I hear everything you're saying though. I mean, if it was like ultimate legends, he's pretty iconic. He's very iconic.
We have certainly been putting people on. Sandra, Rupert, Boston Rob, Colby, Jerry.
Yeah, but Survivor loves those people still. Like, most of those people, Survivor loves those people, you know? And
that's the thing, is the question is, because I know people have also pulled like random clips that apparently after Winners at War, Jeff said like that he watched Heroes versus Villains back, and he's like, oh yeah, I remember when Russell was doing all that great stuff. To your point, I do wonder if this is more in the Hatch territory of this is like a liability to the show for various reasons, whether it be him, using hateful or offensive language on the show and clearly offending the people that would be around him and would be uncomfortable playing with him, or the liability of, again, would he be able to stick with an NDA and not give away information? Because the thing about Russell as well is that he's been very loose-lipped on social media, again, speaking to those videos, to say the least. And so, again, you might catch him on a bad day, and there could be a shot that this dude leaks the entirety of what happens in Survivor 50 on a weeknight.
And what do they need that for? You know what I mean? Like, yes, is he individually iconic? Absolutely. Are there also so many people that also are incredibly iconic? Yes. And like, I'm talking about like the people on your list that you just said, like, I don't know. Okay, wait. Well, I know we're still debating him, but I have you here and I want to ask you a question about Russell. Okay. In the Heroes Villains finale, so I know this is your next episode, there's that whole scene, obviously, with Russell and Rob is saying how, he plays to win and Russell doesn't play to win. But doesn't Rob basically, like Boston Rob, obviously, play basically the exact same game where everyone hates him at the end? He just figures out you just have to take people, not just who you don't think played a good game, who other people hate or disrespect fundamentally.
Well, that's the thing, is like he's able, I think him and Russell, I wouldn't say they're two sides of the same coin, but I think one of the reasons why they maybe bristled in Heroes versus Villains is that I do think to a certain extent they're both personality types where they do like to be in charge. They do like to be the ones that are looked at in that leadership position, which kind of makes them untouchable. And I also think that much like Boston Rob, and another reason why maybe people would not want to see Russell back is that Russell tends to play the way, and Boston Rob does well as well to a certain extent, tends to play the exact same way every single time. You talk about the way that he went out in Redemption Island, which was, him gathering his dumbass girls and Stephanie and in Krista, and him looking for a hidden immunity idol. We were watching the Russell beats get hit. Even when Russell transferred continents and went to Australian Survivor for Champions versus Contenders, he was getting in arguments with people. He found an idol, wore it around his neck at his first tribal council, and ended up getting voted out. So it is a bit of diminishing returns as well in both us watching the Russell rerun as well as his performance, because now we have 2nd out of 20, 3rd out of 20, 17th out of 18th, and 23rd out of 24th.
Well, and that's the thing. I think, it worked so well because he was hiding the first couple times,
Exactly.
The first 2 times, right?
Yeah, because people did not watch Samoa because it filmed right afterwards, so nobody knew what this guy was bringing besides, I guess he's one of the most 10 iconic villains in Survivor.
Right, which of course, and people hadn't seen the season, huge leg up, of course. But even still, he also was playing along. You know what I mean? He was lowering his threat level a little, like I feel like he was trying to like kiss ass a little bit. He comes into Redemption Island and he's just like, I feel like it's like Tony in Game Changers, like, I'm going to go look for the idol. Like, it's a cartoon version of the same thing. You know what I mean? And so like, and I don't feel like he has the thing where he might now have matured that he can do it different, like that. No evidence towards that exists. He does. I feel like he's in touch with a lot of people though. Like I feel like I recently saw like a Carson, Carolyn, Russell FaceTime.
Yeah, which is wild, right? Considering all the crosswords that Carolyn and Russell exchanged before their season was on.
Did they? I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Carolyn and Russell have definitely exchanged some crossfire either before or while Survivor 44 was airing. So yes, while he may have relationships with some of these 2 era people, I don't know if they're the strongest, but they might be what he would need, considering that, I think his reputation precedes him in a lot of ways, should he play. So all that is to say, if there was ever a time for him to come back, it would be under a Legend season. But I do think you're making some very solid arguments about how, despite what might be claimed by some sources, including Russell himself, it just feels like the cons may outweigh the pros too much of, okay, he's a legend of the game, but I don't think time number 4 or 5 in general is in the cards for him.
Yeah, I truly, truly would be shocked if like, there's also, it's like, what does it mean to be contacted for something? You know what I mean? Like, like at one point, a casting person was like, want to go to Mohegan Sun and like, talk to people there. Was I contacted for that season? I wouldn't say so, but
Jesse Tannenbaum liked my post. I was contacted by Survivor.
Exactly. Yeah, like someone wished me happy birthday. Oh, they're looking. You know what I mean? So, there's a lot of contacts out there, and I just really especially like that was 40. It's actually now past 40, and like the vibe of the show now just is different, and like I truly would be shocked. However, if you're saying that people like Johnny Fairplay was Hatch on the ballot? Hatch was not.
Hatch is not on the ballot. No, that was very much an ironclad case of like he is not going to get brought back. So like I'm trying to figure out how close to that territory in a very different regard is Russell. Fairplay seems to be more so on the other side of the villain spectrum, where according to him, it's a little bit water under the bridge. He's okay with production now. Russell seems to me at the moment, and I could be wrong, is maybe more so towards the Hatch side of things.
I also feel like Johnny Fairplay, I mean, you obviously already talked all about this, but he's been on an up. Like he's got House of Villains and stuff like that, where like he's proven that he can do shows and be okay. You know what I mean? That's
the thing is, I think Russell, just put out a video at the time we're recording this last week, right? With the announcement of the Traitors Season 3 cast called like, Why They Won't Cast Me for the Traitors. So it seems like if Russell's habit is to, again, kind of fly off the handle and go on a video and talk about why this show needs him, it's starting to prove the point a bit more as to why none of these shows would have him on.
Yeah, I would be shocked, but you never know. Expect the unexpected,
Oh, please don't. We already saw a handsome Big Brother. We're good.
That's right. I mean, that is the other thing. Talk about the other people that spawned off of Russell. Like, you think they're what was that really, really homophobic guy in Nicaragua? That was like his friend. Shannon. Yep. Like, thank God that Russell brought all these people into.
Yeah, we had, and then of course we have his literal nephew that got brought on for 2 seasons.
Of course, which honestly, my first choice of which of these podcasts to do was South Pacific, and I will never get over who beat me to it. Stay tuned. But I mean, Brandon Hantz, obviously, lots going on there, but I thought his first game was fascinating. That whole season, I love that. Yeah. Again, another gritty one. I like it when it's rough.
Yeah, I mean, and that one is definitely, I would think, more like one of the best dissections of the human psyche that I've seen in Survivor.
Yes.
But we'll get to that after the July 4th holiday. I do want to dote on Natalie here. Because Natalie, again, I think one of the most, unfortunately, to consider one of the most WTF winners in Survivor history, considering that from an editing perspective, she came out of nowhere. A lot of her confessionals were about her strategy of just kind of drafting under Russell because she knows that if you can't beat him, join him. He was taking out all the other women that were trying to serve as threats to him. So if she just fell in line with him, she knew she could get to the end and beat him because he's so unlikable. That's exactly what happened. And she was able to convince enough of the jurors, apparently in that final tribal council, to give her the votes and $1 million. On paper, I would love to have her back as sort of like the Michelle in Winners at War to the extreme of like, this is what some people deem as the least deserving winner in Survivor history. Let her get that opportunity to prove herself. The other side of that is that Natalie has also gone completely off the grid, is not on social media, I'm sure is spending her million and then so living footloose and fancy free. And I just feel like whether it's due to, her lack of interest in the show or the fact that the fandom, to say they came down on her hard in the moment would be an understatement. My assumption is she would not want to come back and play.
Okay, I can't speak for the would she want to. I really can't. Except to say that in my experience, although it's, only a couple years old, Survivor players like to be on TV. And I think that there's a never say never attitude here. Also, I would absolutely love to see her back. Like, I really do feel like this would be like my number one want of if she wanted to do it. Just because, I mean, there's everything you said of the WTF. And there's also just and this is still sometimes a problem in Survivor, that most of the storytellers, it's getting better, but most of the storytellers are men, and they are used to telling the story from a men's perspective and often have trouble with that. And the idea that this thing that Natalie is going through of being a woman, being belittled and underestimated by this man, like, and is somehow a story that they're unable to tell when it's actually one of the most common experiences on earth, like for half the population. And you have so many opportunities to tell that story in the season by all these other women's interactions with Russell. It's just like it's just, they were so focused on him, and there was a way to tell the story that I think would actually be fascinating and could be like a badass story of from Natalie's perspective or from that lens. And at the end of the day, that's a freaking winning strategy, is to sit at the end with a guy that everyone hates. Boston Rob knows that too. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like it's not, I mean, we talked about South Pacific. It's not so different from what Sophie's doing. Obviously, we know and respect Sophie and Boston Rob more than we're able to Natalie, because we just really didn't get to see it. But at the end of the day, I would absolutely love to see what also an older Natalie, more life experience, dealing with all this that happened, like what comes next for her. I'd be fascinated.
Yeah, she is 41 years old, so the Survivor fans have tried their best to be as sleuthy as possible, put on their Detective Dean hats, and there was a photo found of her from like 2020 or 2021. She's living in Oklahoma now. She's married with children. Her name is Natalie Tiffin. So if we talk about from a narrative perspective, that's always interesting as well. Survivor loves the angle of like, oh, since you were last on, you've started a family. That gives you a different perspective. Again, I just, there's so much unknown there where I think maybe she's just anti-social media, but I feel like if she wanted to get involved with the Survivor community, she could, especially now when I feel like she would be freaking celebrated by the fan base of Survivor, considering the players that tend to get lauded. The only other thing, and this could be an urban legend, but I did hear rumors that like Natalie White got a call of availability for Winners at War and left them on red. So
wow.
So that might have been like a meme, it's on Reddit, so I'm not entirely sure. But
yeah, like who knows? How do we know?
But it wouldn't make sense, because I would imagine that they were having trouble putting together the female cast in particular, just due to that gender imbalance by the end of the late 30s, where I would imagine she might have gotten an availability call. And I could see, if she does deny that, then maybe she truly is just like one of those sane people that says, well, I had my time on a reality TV show. I won $1 million. I am moving on with my life.
Yeah, it must be special to win, That's the thing,
Are you just speaking to yourself 2 years from now when you win Survivor 50?
I mean, let's freaking hope so, man. But I'll still be here. Don't worry. This is my hobby. Like, you're not gonna run me off the podcast streets. But yeah. I mean, fair enough. Couldn't you see? Okay, I don't know this person at all, so this is pure fanfic. But couldn't you see like a world where like in like 3 years she gets divorced and then she has like a I'm coming back like.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I could see that
very Challenge All-Stars of like, this is my divorce party, my 39-day divorce party.
Yeah, and then she has like a Kim Spradlin thing where she's like taking her life back and like, but that's made up. I don't know her,
Anything
I hope
about...
she's happy. I
hope she is as well, just in general. Anything about Mick, or do we just regard him as feckless and move on?
I mean, he is feckless, I like that does feel like the perfect summary. I mean, you could see someone like Mick being cast now, maybe, like maybe, I don't know, maybe he's like an end of 30s. I just feel like,
yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like Mick may have had his chance in like, obviously not heroes versus villains, but like a Caramone, if they did like a full All-Stars in Caramone.
Oh, he could have been a healer.
He should have been. Yeah, they did All-Stars, Heroes, Healers, Hustlers. Yes, he was a doctor. I believe he still is a doctor.
Yeah. But he's just in the least, it's the most competitive demographic of like hot white guy on Survivor. We just have so many of them. And I really can't see Mick making the cut there,
I mean, he was kind of in this enviable position where Samoa, the big twist they had was that there was one leader on each of the tribes who made basically all the decisions pre-merge as to who would sit out challenges, who would get kidnapped to the other tribe, etc. And Mick ended up in that position. And just as it went along, he was like, oh God, I'm the teacher of this kindergarten class. I don't want to do this anymore. And so he kind of, and the edit showed as well, kind of like shrunk into it more and more, that by the time he got to Final Tribal Council, again, it seemed to be, according to some jurors, between him and Natalie for the win, and he just bombs a couple questions in the end that denies him $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I had always heard was that they were going in planning to vote for Mick, and and that he was so bad and Natalie was so like solid, I guess, that that they flipped it up. So yeah, I can't really see it, but I hope he's well,
All right, well, let's move on to this jury, because this is where we're going to start to talk about some really interesting individuals here, because people think that Samoa is the Russell show, but we forget, Evvie, that 4 people have come back from Samoa, low-key, so far. So, building our way up, we have he who gave the speech, arguably, to push Natalie over the line, in Eric Cardona. We have Kelly Sharbaugh, who got idled out by Russell. We have, of course, Laura Moret, who will more infamously get voted out by her own daughter in Blood vs. Water. We have John Fincher. We have Danger Dave Ball. We have a second chancer herself, Monica Padilla. We have the one, the only Shambo, or Shambo, as Eric called her. We have Jason, who we'll put a pin in, I thought was like a really fun low-key part of the season. And we have, speaking of low-key, CGI Brett Klauser, again, in a different edited season and with a different outcome. Brett is your winner. This is a guy who had all the Galoos taken out, but went on a bit of a challenge run towards the end and was one immunity victory away from making the final 3 and definitively winning. He did not. As a result, he got purpled, and it wasn't just the color of his buff. Sort of like in the Natalie perspective, Brett is someone that could have been interesting on another season as to like, he came so close, can he finish that business? But I don't even know if the software is updated on that beta version of him.
I mean, yeah, they didn't want to tell the story the first time, and it would have been interesting then if there was some reason to root for Brett, And so, yeah, it is hard to see him coming back, but thank God he was there. Like, it was definitely it makes the end game a bit more compelling and stressful. That the Foa has this final hurdle, maybe underwhelming hurdle, but they still have to face it,
Yeah, well, he is no Mike Tyson. He is just Brett, and unfortunately, he's just Brett. So I think we will leave him in the box.
The he's not Mike Tyson, he's Brett. That's in the same lineage as then later Caleb's I'm not Batman, I'm the Canadian.
Yes, exactly. I love the I'm not blank, I'm the blank. And that includes I ain't no Hershey bar. I think that's right. Corollary to the category. Let's talk about a couple of our returnees here first. Laura Moret. I think that on paper, when she came back for Blood vs. Water, people probably cocked their eyebrows. But I feel like she was a major force on the Galoo side of things, which obviously pales in comparison to Foa. But we have the rivalry with Shambo, and we have the fact that she was a little unkillable for the first portion of the game. When the merge hits, Shambo is ready to jump ASAP. She has had enough of Laura. She is ready, as Laura is a grandmother, but Shambo is ready to make Laura crying for her mother at the end of the day by snuffing her torch and getting rid of her. Laura proceeds to then win the next 2 immunity challenges. And so she is a low-key challenge threat, which becomes much more high-key in Blood vs. Water, where she gets voted out, I think, in episode 5 and goes on to win probably 3 or 4 duels against the likes of someone like a John Cody, for instance, makes it back into the game, gets voted out again, wins 3 or 4 duels again, and nearly makes her way back into the game a second time. So Laura Moret, I feel like, doesn't get talked about sometimes as someone who is incredibly adept at some of these Survivor challenges, even if they were kind of wackadoo in those seasons.
Oh, absolutely. Laura Moret freaking rocks. She's high up on my list. I definitely think she's a contender here. I mean, okay, I know you all did the mother versus mother podcast. Mike, are you familiar with the concept of mommy? I like it with an I. Yeah, it's for me. It's not for you, really.
No, it's really, I'm cringing right now.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But listen, hot older ladies, it really works for me. And Laura Moret is a fucking badass hottie mommy. Mommy's like, it's like daddy. You know what I mean? But,
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's like zaddy. You know what I mean? But for the ladies, but more in the older. Anyway, Laura Moret, She's cool. She's a badass. The relationship with Sierra, so iconic. And I actually think, like you said, I think she brings quite a lot to the season. I think she's someone also that I know that in the variety of the seasons, it comes up about her faith and things like that. And you can just see her as one of the people that probably was a force on the jury of like, we are not giving this money to Russell Hantz, you know, and you could just see her being, and like, I do feel like the women of Galoo was definitely like a force, and she really was the leader of that in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think she was a badass on Survivor. I would like to see her on my TV again for personal reasons. And yeah, yeah, she's great.
Listen,
she's
you can put people forward through any of your pieces of criteria, no matter how thirsty they may be. My push against Laura would be, you know, I am really up for bringing people back for like third, fourth, umpteen times. If A, it ties into the Legends theming, and B, if it feels like there is, you know, something new that they could bring. Candace Cody, for example, besides being in Contact for season 40, she is a mother now, mother maybe perhaps. And so it'd be interesting to see her come back for time number 4. Laura, I'm wondering, like, have we expended the story beats with Blood versus Water, where it really felt like the torch was kind of passed to Sierra, who then appears on 2 more seasons after her? That does make me feel, okay, did Laura sort of have her time, have her impressive run in Blood versus Water, and that's where it should end?
Yeah, I think it's possible. And I think, you know, I'm sure there's been stuff going on in her life, you know, whatever. Her grandkids are older now, but I hear
she ran for a position in the House of Representatives, I believe, not too long ago.
That's badass. That sounds like the Laura Moret I know.
She did lose.
Sure. That also tracks.
So, yeah, survivors have not had a great hot streak when it comes to now. Nick Brown is running for Attorney General of Washington. Maybe he'll break the curse, but yeah, between her and Rupert, it hasn't been great so far.
You know, Nick Wilson got elected though. So,
that's true. That's true. You know.
But what was I gonna say? Oh yes. However, okay, again, thinking of the demographics, how old is Laura Moret now?
She is 54.
You got to imagine Laura Moret is still in great shape. I mean, she was in fantastic shape in Blood versus Water. And I just feel like when you're thinking of like the 50-somethings women, I do feel like she is quite memorable and probably still can hang. So I don't know. I think she, like, is it a long shot? Is it a long shot for every single person in Samoa? Yes. But listen, she's one of the shots. She's one of the long shots, I would say. Certainly, like the multiple appearances in the Sierra legacy gives her something. Hell, Sierra could be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So the other returning that I want to talk about is, of course, Monica, who again people might not remember, but she did come back for Survivor Second Chances, and I saw it. From Monica. Monica absolutely gave it to Russell on her way out, where she's voted out in 7th place. The writing was very much on the wall, and she kind of ends up forecasting his doom when she talks about, you know, the way that he was treating people, etc., etc. So I was excited to see her on the ballot for Second Chances. In fact, I believe I made her my winner pick for Second Chances, because I also thought returning season, like, these are the people that typically win, right? It's these kind of like unassuming, more under the radar women. It's tough to consider Sandra under the radar, but she certainly was, given the timbre of heroes versus villains. Doesn't work out for Monica. She gets booted in episode 5, and she has gone on to say that it's something she does not want to do again. But I just wanted to throw it out there about, yes, it may be odd in retrospect that Monica Padilla is a 2-time Survivor player, but watch Samoa again. She's got some flavor to her.
I agree. I think it was awesome that she made it on for Second Chances, but I do agree that, you know, ultimately that didn't go anywhere, and that's probably the end for that. But I'm glad she got the second chance for sure.
All right, well, let's move one place to her left. I mean, we have to talk about, if Russell is the star of the season, if he is the sun, then I would say the planet most closely orbiting him is Shambo. Shannon Waters, just an absolutely incredible character who comes in with like an outcast personality, but an alpha male desire of like, I am going to be the ruler of this tribe. No matter what, you're all going to listen to me. But unfortunately, the way she comes across is that she is completely disregarded by Galoo. They win every immunity challenge except for one, and so they have no chance to get rid of her. She's consistently getting shirked, where like she misses out on a reward one time because Russell Swan sends her over to the Foa Foas, which plants the seeds for her to flip immediately, pretty much, at the merge. And she ends up going out in 6th place only because Brett wins immunity, and Russell basically feels like Shambo is not going to help him beat Brett in immunity challenges. And so she gets cast out there. Shambo has been contacted multiple times to come back for Survivor.
Okay.
She was contacted for at least Heroes versus Villains, I believe Blood versus Water, but everyone was. Maybe Karamoan. She has declined all times. I believe the prevailing narrative is that Shambo was not happy with her edit. She feel like she was given too much of the Dodo music, and so decided she did not want to do Survivor again, if you will. So I would imagine that tune hasn't changed. I don't even know if she watches the show anymore. She's 60 years old at the moment. So unfortunately, as much as it sucks to say, especially if you put her up against other characters like Carolyn, Nora, etc., I think Shambo's got to be a one and done.
Yeah, I mean, I had heard that she like didn't want to do the show again, so that says it all. But I do think, I mean, absolutely iconic, and one of the most epic Survivor flips, you know what I mean, from a strategic. Ultimately, without her, Foa, isn't getting there. We're not getting this like epic underdog turned winner like group ever. And she's this ultimate outcast. I mean, like honestly, some Rupert vibes even, except that Rupert's like a little better at fishing and some of the other skills.
She does know that there are fish in the ocean.
There are fish in the ocean, though. She figured that one out for sure. But no, I mean, she's great. I honestly, when people have a bad experience, I'm actually quite happy for them when they are like, I don't want to do it again.
It feels healthy. Yeah. It's like, don't involve yourself in this toxic relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So good for her for getting out. If it's right for her, but so glad we had her. So lucky. What a ridiculous group of people. You know what I mean? Like
I'm on a key moving to her left because I want to talk about Jason. I love Jason. I think in the new era, it has luckily allowed people a lot more opportunities to speak their mind under the pretense of an incredibly stressful game where, much like getting arrested, anything that you say can and will be used against you in the court of Survivor. Jason, unfortunately, is dealt this incredibly bad hand when he is put on a tribe with an out-and-out racist in Ben Browning, who was using some incredibly harmful language to Yasmin when she visited the camp. And Jason takes a stand in a game where he is in the hunt for $1 million and he knows that everything he says could impede that goal. He goes to tribal council and he tells the tribe basically like, it's him or me. If you keep him in the game, I will quit right now. This is not something that I will negotiate with. I refuse to go in this game for as long as this guy is in it. And even Russell Hantz, who is notoriously obstinate and refuses to budge, Mr. My Way or the Highway, acquiesces and gets rid of Ben, who he doesn't want to because of the stand that Jason takes. He won me over in that moment, even before, back in the first episode when Mick has to choose people to do specific legs in the opening challenge, and he immediately undoes the whole black man can't swim trope by like absolutely blitzing John Fincher in the water and winning that first challenge for Foa. He's someone I've always really enjoyed. It sucks that he was really petering out towards the end of the game. It's clear the elements were getting to him and he was just a shell of himself to the point where he goes in 5th because of the same reason Shambo does, because Brett wins immunity and Russell's like, you're no use to me because you can't win challenges, so I have to get rid of you here. And Jason has gone on to live a pretty fruitful life since, as he's a freaking astronaut.
No way. What?
So I'm using the term a bit liberally, but he was on an expedition in, 2022. Yes, he was affiliated with the private agency Blue Origin, and I believe briefly went into space in June of 2022.
So was he in the same spot as Samoa again, but this time vertically?
Yes, exactly. He pulled the Dan Fuego where he said, like, I've been here just 40,000 miles to the north.
No, but for real, I actually think like, I don't know exactly the rules that we're going to ultimately do for these ballots, but I feel like Jason is someone that I genuinely like would want to see again. He's in my top probably 3 of this cast, honestly, because I do really think with everything you said, like, he really makes a stand in that moment in an incredibly difficult situation. And he should never have been in that situation. And to think about how he petered out by the end of the game, I can't imagine how much that whole thing was weighing on him the whole time, knowing like, oh my God, did I do that? Like, did I say it right? How are people going to think? Should I have said something earlier? Like, there's probably so absolutely much weighing on him the entire time. Like, how are they going to edit it? You know what I mean? All that stuff that you can't imagine, like the psychological toll that sort of thing can take on you, and you're trying to play the game. And like, yeah, ultimately, I feel like we didn't get to know him so well because, again, like everyone, he suffered from the massive Russell edit. And I actually think he's someone that put him in a new era with a totally different group of people, and who knows how he'd do, you know? So yeah, is he like the most remembered player? Definitely not. But someone that like deserved a better era than he played it, you know?
Yeah, and that's what the purpose of this can be sometimes too, especially for seasons, which, as you say, cards up, will probably have no representatives, especially in a season 50. Is like, this is where the wish in wishlist comes in. Jason is also 43 years old. The pictures I've seen of him seems to look like he's in relative good shape. I mean, you have to be if you want to go into space. So yeah, listen, I'm good with putting him through. Let's wish away here.
Yeah, he's high up for me.
Doting on a couple of other people, Eric Cardona. Yeah. Eric, I feel like, had a lot of potential. You know, he was a fun little character narrator on those Scotias of Galoo scenes we got. He infamously gets clotheslined by the clothesline as he is trying to get the chicken. He had those iconic confessional spots where he was huddled in the little tree husk as it was pouring outside. And he gets voted out with an idol in his pocket before that was the cool thing to do.
That's right.
At the merge. But of course, I think he really cements his legacy when he puts forward this huge, grandiose Shaquilla at the final tribal council, talking about, you know, maybe the person who wins shouldn't be the one who played in an environment of arrogance or delusional entitlement, but the person who feels they deserve it the least. And I don't know if that was the thing to move the chains necessarily, but it certainly is a speech that still echoes in Survivor history. Eric has said in his quarantine questionnaire that the day he came home from Samoa, he packed a return backpack and threw it in the corner of his apartment. Evvie, do you want him to pick that backpack up and take it to Fiji with him?
That's literally so Eric Cardona that he would do that. That's so ridiculous. I mean, honestly, I don't know what a second time looks like from him. I feel like, you know, I remember these same, I get these images of him, you know, but it's like, what was he really? You know, it was a fun vibe out there. But at the end of the day, I'm not thirsting necessarily for more of that story. But again, so glad that he was there. And I do think there were times when the Galoo tribe was a little taking it easy and he was really bringing the spice, which I really appreciate about him. And that speech is iconic and so fraught. This man is an emotional man, and I love that. I don't expect to see him on 50, but again, if it hadn't been heroes, villains, if it had been something a little chiller, you know, if there was another returner sooner, like you definitely could have seen him maybe making it back there in an earlier one. But yeah,
I'll dote on a couple more people here with no offense to Kelly Sharbaugh. So Dave Ball, get another example a la Shambo of like, how did they get these people onto Survivor? This guy is such a fun case. I always remember his confessional where he's pretending to steer the like schooner that they're on board, doing a reward where he's laughing to himself about like pirating, boozing, picking up women. Of course, he had the line that I mentioned before about how making love is my sport. Shambo got rid of him because she had a dream about it with the chickens. Dave has expressed that he says, for I think some unknown reasons, that he would not go back. I think it's more so that he may have said some things about production that he feels may have like low-key blacklisted him, nor do I think that he would necessarily want to. So much like Shambo, I think a fun one and done character we can leave in Samoa.
Sure, but making love is my sport. You know, you might want to forget that and you can't. You know, that iconic for sure. For sure.
Last thing I will just mention here is that John Fincher will not be on Survivor 50, and I apologize to get into some darker stuff. But for those that don't know, because obviously this, you know, we're not all online to a capacity that certain Survivor fans are. John Fincher was married to Parvati Shallow for a good portion of time, a few years, I believe. They filed for divorce in 2021, which became official in 2023. And there have been statements from Parvati about him participating in domestic violence against her. And so I think for many reasons, let us leave this guy. We're not stoked on Pi. We're not stoked on John Fincher.
No, what a freaking poser. Am I right?
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about briefly our pre-jurors here. So we have Russell's, I would say, victims in a manner of speaking, in that the people he found threatening, he would take out in the forms of our first boot, Marissa, Betsy, the cop, who I remember saying bad boys when she was trying to vote Ben out. We have Ashley Traynor, and we have Liz Kim. We have, of course, another iconic Mike B and Mike Barassi, the mean motor scooter, who becomes the first victim, but not certainly the last, of Schmergen
He's
Brawl.
taking him down to Chinatown, Mike.
I love the braided goatee. What an incredible look. Then we have Ben. Not going to say anything about him.
Nope.
Yasmin, who was certainly, I think, in over her head in so many ways in Samoa, and is the only person voted out of Galoo. And then we have Russell Swan, who came the close to dying on Survivor, where this man took the leadership title on the chin, almost unlike Mick, where he is working everything to the bone, consistently busting his ass all around camp, even in the pouring rain, and as a result, completely exhausts himself, where during a challenge, he's blindfolded, trying to navigate a maze, and he starts to outright collapse during the challenge. And as Jeff and the medics are tending to him, you see the life is leaving his eyes. If this were a cartoon, his ghost is starting to float up from his body before it gets snatched back down. Russell is given a second chance in Survivor Philippines, where it doesn't go so great. He gets put from a tribe that wins everything to a tribe that wins nothing, which causes him to melt down. And of course, one of the most iconic lines, Lord, I mean Jeff, and leads to an incredibly gripping boot episode. So the question is, Evvie, do we feel we want a third flight out of the pilot man Russ?
I do not personally. I think we really had it with the second one where, he leaves in Samoa and there's so much what could have been. That was such a dramatic and terrifying, frankly, exit, and then we saw it in the Philippines. And I have to say, I do think I didn't rewatch all of Samoa in prep for this, but I did listen to about 3 or 4 hours of the evolution of strategy about Samoa.
Great in-house advertising. Yeah.
If people don't know about it, it's really the best thing ever. So you should check it out. Send some love to Rob and Josh. But he makes terrible decisions as the leader of Galoo. And I do think it's some of the same reasons why Matt Singh lost so many challenges. Like, he does make snap decisions that are notoriously terrible, like choosing comfort items over tarp, which tarp is like the most notoriously most important reward item,
especially in Samoa, where ironically enough, actually, he played in 2 of the rainiest seasons in Survivor history.
Right, and you see him in Matt Singh, like, making all sorts of terrible decisions about who should be in what piece of the challenges. And I think he had the second chance. I think it was very memorable. Like for that final boot, it's like it's Malcolm versus Denise for Russell, but really it's the two of them against Russell. But it's really important. But I think we've seen it.
I agree.
But are we going to go back to some of these other people? Because I just real quick think that some of these, especially, I'm going to talk about Liz and Betsy.
Yeah, I was gonna give like a special shout out to Liz Kim, because like she was on to Russell's game, and that's arguably why she's in this slideshow right now. But she was someone that was clearly clocking what he was doing from the beginning.
Yes, and ultimately, like, so cool. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? At the end of the day, you're with Russell Hantz. It's going to be really hard for someone who is such an independent, their own person, especially a woman, I think. But anyone, honestly, to make it out of that tribe with 4 people, and one of them is going to be Russell. It's just a very hard situation. But Liz got freaking close, and she really did know what was happening, know what was up. Refrain from telling Russell about it for a while, which was more than could be said for some of these other people. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of thought she was a badass. Like, I think if you rewatch it and if there's a Liz cut where you're kind of like, damn, if only Liz Kim had gotten further.
Yeah, I mean, listen, had Foa done the impossible and won another immunity challenge, she would have made the jury. And
right.
I don't know if she sticks with the Foa. Maybe she tries to join Galoo to turn against Russell, but it could have been interesting to see her on there. See, I do think she is underrated. She wouldn't make the list, but this is where we also use the opportunity to highlight some players that shouldn't be forgotten in the annals of Survivor history. In a cast that largely does due to the way the season is edited, shout out to Liz.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like way less of it, but Betsy, same thing. I like anyone that clocks Russell right away. And she, with her women's intuition, saw him for the liar that he was. And I appreciate that. So thank you.
All right. So Evvie, I think we've come to the conclusion that Russell is not going to be on the ballot. The question is, who is here?
Okay, wow. So you're on it. You agree? No Russell?
No Russell. I'm in no Russell right now. Now look, I have proven that I can be fickle with these things. If I'm given, a solid wall of arguments, I will spoil right now that I am working out a way to do a little bit of a check-in halfway through this process to maybe talk about some people that are on the bubble, give them a second glance as a wild card. If there is this overwhelming response, much like Russell prognosticated of why the jury vote shouldn't matter, of like, no, you can't have it without Russell. Definitely, I do think, to your point, what makes him a bit different than some of the other people that I've put on who have had stickier situations is that this thing is a big old jar of honey. And so I need some time to chew it all over. But someone I do not have difficulty chewing through is a nice spoonful of Jason Robinson. Why don't we put him on?
I agree. Jason on. I think
Jason on. So we could definitely put him on. And then, honestly, it's wide open for
me. Completely agree. How many are we going to do? 3?
We don't need to do 3. We can do as many as we want to. It is totally okay, given, I think, especially the editing of this cast, that we don't necessarily need to hit that quota or anything.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, like we could each choose one, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Okay. Since this is all wish list anyway, give me Liz Kim. Throw Liz Kim on the freaking ballot, Mike.
Okay, sure. I'll put Liz Kim on there. So yeah, I will do that. And I'm really debating. I don't know if I want Laura or if I want Eric. I might put. I'll throw Eric on there. Why not? Right. I'll throw Eric Cardona on there. Why not? There we go. Nice and easy. So our 3 going through are Jason 43, Eric 43, Liz 48. Last thing, Evvie, anyone from Samoa that you want to see on a reality show other than Survivor?
Oh my God, I forgot that this was part of it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, obviously put Shambo on any of the weird queer dating shows. Wait, she is a lesbian, right? Or did I just
I don't know if she is actually.
I just I felt that from her in a nice way where I was like, look at this weird adult. I feel like that could be like me. Whatever she's got going on, I would watch more of it. Throw her on literally any show and I would watch it.
You know what? Actually, no matter what side of the basis she's on, Shambo for Love Island.
Shambo for Love Island. That's
would be obsessed with Shambo on Love Island. Be like, I got a text.
Yes. You can see her running all around. That'd be great.
Or like put her on like a Golden Bachelor or Golden Bachelorette,
Yes.
Like, you know what? Actually, can she be the Golden Bachelorette? I think because she is right now 60.
Yes.
Listen, I think make her the Golden Bachelorette.
She was made to be the alpha of one of these shows. That's right.
The thing. She needs to do the choosing. She's giving out the roses.
Yes.
All right. You hear us, ABC? Make it happen. The contract, I think, has pretty much lapsed for Shambo at this point that we could do it.
Yes.
Evvie, this was such a great time. Such a great way to wrap up this week of Survivor 50 Wish List. Of course, on Monday, we're coming back for something a little different. It's Heroes versus Villains. So we are going to break down the cast from there. We'll talk about Russell again, talk about the other 19 players there, maybe speak a bit as to what was going on, why were these certain people cast? Will that speak ahead to anything that's coming with Survivor 50? Then we're going to do 2 more that week. We're going to do Nicaragua on Tuesday and Redemption Island on Wednesday. And then we're going to take off the rest of the week, actually, because of the July 4th holiday here in the States. Though, as I teased before, maybe we'll try to do a little something special if we have the time and the effort over the course of the holiday weekend. So this will be the last one we chew on over the course of the next few days. And Evvie, this was a fantastic one to chew on. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me about this. This was such a great time.
My pleasure, Mike. You really are a workhorse for the summer of Survivor, and we appreciate it. Thank you for the content.
Well, Evvie, you have been a workhorse this entire month as we are bidding adieu to June. Of course, it is the Pride Has Spoken season, and what a season that you have provided here. Anything you like to plug for the listeners out there as the calendar turns to July?
Thanks. I mean, I really am just so proud of this season of The Pride Has Spoken and the entire thing. I mean, it's just a dream come true for me. So if you haven't taken a listen to that, you can find episodes of The Pride Has Spoken in their own feed in Spotify or in the Survivor feed in the Survivor RHAP feed. Check it out. It's wonderful. And if you only listen to this season of The Pride Has Spoken, there's some really amazing ones from last season. We've got Todd, we've got Hai, we've got Carla. The season before that, we have Bryce and Zeke and Amy and Ty and Lyrsa. And it's just absolutely amazing that I've gotten to talk to all these people about their experiences being LGBTQ plus players of Survivor. So I really encourage people to check it out. And also we are selling this month. You can still get the Pride Has Spoken t-shirts and buffs. We have Pride Has Spoken buffs this year. All of the money is going to an amazing organization, the Point of Pride, which is donating, which puts funds towards trans healthcare and helping trans people get what they need. So check it out. It's a cool t-shirt. It's a cool buff. It's a great cause. And you can find all of that in the RHAP merch store and stuff like that.
Yes,
and you can
follow
also me on the Instagrams and whatever.
Yeah. Well, please check out everything that Evvie is doing because it is so fantastic. Congratulations on another great year of The Pride Has Spoken. Truly, I think you outdo yourselves every year. And the stuff that you get to put out there, especially from a representative perspective, we are so lucky to have you and Grace and Matt and to have you today talking Samoa with us. Let your thoughts be known. I'm sure you all have plenty, especially when it comes to the rustle of it all. And I want your voices to be heard, especially as maybe I might give a second glance to some of these people in just a little bit. But first, we're talking Heroes versus Villains cast on Monday. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great weekend, everybody. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.